I think that you have to have this, especially in the restaurant industry, you have to have this certain baseline of service-oriented mindset, hospitality-driven mindset, feel supported and comfortable, and that even when they do have a quote-unquote failure, that they will be better for it. You are more prepared, you are more engaged, but it also is a signal to the people around you that you are committed. And when you put out those signals that you're committed to yourself, when you're committed to those that are near you, they, in most instances, will give you that same commitment level back.
Bill Dingman is a local restaurateur, family man, and community impactor. He is the district operations manager for Spot Coffee and the former GM of top local establishments, including Bistro Tallulah, Morgan & Company, Craft on 9, Raoul's, and Forged. If you're from the upstate New York, Capital Region, Glens Falls-ish area, then you know those restaurants very, very well. Incredible food, incredible service, incredible systems. And Bill played a giant part in building the systems that you get to go and enjoy whenever you choose to. So I had to have Bill on this show to talk to him about how he became the man that he is, why he's the person who's called in order to make big moves in these establishments. And he is here with us today to talk about all of that. Bill, it's great to have you here, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So let me tell you, we met on Mike Nelson's podcast, Buying Local, and he invited me to come along. He said, hey, we're going to be interviewing the DM of Spot Coffee. And I was like, this is really cool. I expected to hear a lot about Spot. I expected to hear a lot about the restaurant world, you know, what the future looked like. But what I didn't expect to learn is about you. And specifically, I wanted to commend your leadership abilities. I wanted to commend your storytelling abilities because you're a great storyteller. Like, you kept me engaged through the whole conversation and you led it in a brilliant way. But I also want to commend you on what we speak about on this show all the time, which is being a better human being. And you've got some stories about going the extra mile and taking that extra step and doing the concept of one more that you and I talked about when we spoke last time. So I just wanted to commend you and thank you for being an inspiration to me, even through the few conversations that we've had so far, sir. Thank you for that.
Well, thanks. That was nicer than I expected. I really appreciate your kind words. I do what I can, you know?
So let me ask you, and you're a humble guy. So guys, when you're listening to this, really take notes, because I've chatted with Bill several times about how he became the person who was called in order to build up new establishments, take them to the next level. You've done a lot in the Glens Falls area over the past decade. How did you become the person where the restaurant owner calls you and says, Bill, we need you to come in to take us to the next level? How did you become that point of contact for these business owners?
Yeah, I think it's definitely over the course of my career evolved. Certainly, I think that you have to have this, especially in the restaurant industry, you have to have this certain baseline of service-oriented mindset, hospitality-driven mindset, and also some humility. This is a rough and tumble business, as people in the industry often will tell you about. It's not an easy business to be successful in, and you really have to be excellent at all facets, especially sort of in that fine dining dinner house model. People are paying their very hard-earned money to have a beautiful experience, and so that is where a lot of my initial experience came from, is that fine dining setting, and that sort of laid the foundation, I think, for a mindset and for that angle on hospitality and on service. And just on relationships, building relationships. And I think that's that my tenure with Bistro Tallulah and how supported the community was for that time period that Tallulah was open. But I got to build these great relationships with the community. And so you become trusted. People know to come to you for a great recommendation, whether it's a great bottle of wine or a pairing or, this is their first experience and they want to know, hey, what's all the hype about? How do I navigate this and get the most out of my experience? And so when you become that sort of trusted word, the source of that, you start to build those relationships and those foundations for people to trust your judgment.
Where were you when you built that foundation of trust and became known in this circle that we're discussing of different business owners and people who found out about you and heard about you? Like, was it at Bistro Tallulah that you built that foundation of trust that you spent a lot of your time?
Yeah, I think that in terms of the one-on-ones, the individual relationships with people in the community. So we have built in Glens Falls in particular, this, sort of robust restaurant scene over the last 15 or 20 years. And I think that there's a lot of individuals that strongly support the industry, and they have families that continue to support the industry. And so certainly Bistro Tallulah is where I started those individual relationships. And then I started, in terms of the business side of things, to be recognized for, a really high quality experience. So people, whether they were new to the restaurant scene in our area or were veterans and had always sort of supported what we did, they came to notice, I think, a cut above, a higher level of attention, a higher level of consistency, a higher level of attention to detail. And I like to think of it as like, go out of your way a little bit to make sure that people have a really great time with you. And when you do that, when you take that extra step, when you do that one extra, when you care that little bit more, it shows up, and people recognize it and they appreciate it, and they become willing to support it, over and over again, when they see that you have committed to them.
That's right. Let me tell you what I hear when I listen to everything that you're saying right now. You've said it over and over and over in different words and different language, but it is that idea of the standard of excellence is the concept. And that standard of excellence is everywhere. It's in the restaurant world. It was in the retail sales world where I come from. Like, I remember when I trained new salespeople, a lot of them came up to me after the seminar, after the workshop, and they said, if you could give me just one piece of advice that will help me to be successful here in sales, learning the systems, learning the product, learning how to speak with customers, all those things, what would be your one piece of advice? And they were blown away by what my answer was. I always said the same thing. I said, show up every day 15 minutes early for your shift. If you show up every day 15 minutes early and you prepare for that day, I can practically guarantee you success in the long term. And they were like, that's not that helpful. Like obviously I know to be on time, but there's a big difference between just being on time and getting there 15 minutes early. A giant difference. That extra 15 minutes, you can prepare. You can prepare physically. You can prepare mentally. You can get your station set up so that when the clock rings, when your shift starts, boom, the action starts. You can begin selling. The same thing is at the gym. A lot of people just have a standard of, I just want to feel better, which is great, right? They're already ahead of the people who just go through their lives, don't move their body, anything. But then there's that other person at the gym who says, I'm going to do one more rep every single day. I'm going to track my fitness. I'm going to track the amount of reps I do. I'm going to track my workouts so that when I look back at this in a month, I'll be 20 times ahead the people who just show up and just do the motions, right? That standard of excellence. I'm curious to know from you, is that standard of excellence something that you've always had? Was it something you were born with? Was it something that you found early in your career, even like your first jobs before the bistro and other places? Like, where do you believe that standard of excellence comes from?
Well, I want to answer that question, but I want to just kind of say a little bit about what you just said. I think that there's another element to what you were just speaking on, and it's not only what it does for you. You are more prepared, you are more engaged, but it also is a signal to the people around you that you are committed. And when you put out those signals that you're committed to yourself, when you're committed to those that are near you, they in most instances, will give you that same commitment level back. They will invest in your development. And great leaders build followers. That's really what leadership is. It's about building followers. And I think that commitment goes a long way towards building those followers, people who are willing to commit to you. So yeah, it is a bit of a chicken or the egg scenario here, but it rings true, I think, in all scenarios: business, life, relationships.
So let me follow that up. Is that important for, let's say, the person on the front line at Spot, right? They're taking the orders, they're doing, what you sign up and you begin doing immediately. Is that also applicable for the person who is at the quote bottom of the organizational totem pole, the idea of being that leader and building followers?
Yeah, well, one of the great approaches, I'll call it, that Spot has is a servant leadership model, where we're really an upside down pyramid, where the manager or the general manager of the cafe might be the tip of that upside down pyramid, and they are supporting everybody above them in a servant fashion. And so, yes, I think that model of leadership builds commitment. It built, when people who are, at their entry level see that, their manager, their district manager, their shift leader, whoever it may be that isn't, supposed to be leading them, is willing to commit to them and to their support so that they are successful. Again, it's this, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And people continue to buy into your systems. They continue to buy into your personal approach, because systems are great, and they get the ball rolling, and they put the guidelines and the framework together. But it's the individuals and the individual interactions that actually make success.
Yes.
I always tell my bosses that our employees get to deliver the experience at Spot Coffee. And if the experience is what we are aiming for, which it is at Spot, we want you to have a cut above experience, then we have to invest in that. And a big part of that is getting commitment from the everyday worker, that you are there for them, they are there for you, and how you build that trust.
I think that is so important, what you just said. So before we get back to that last question I asked you, because I do want to visit, because we're talking about this standard of excellence throughout this whole conversation, right? Because that's really what this is about. How can you operate at that higher standard of excellence and execute from that level whenever you need to? Because I feel that a lot of people are out there, even some people listening, might be working for a company where both of these philosophies ring true. The philosophy of leadership trickles down from the top, right? Which there's no doubting that is in fact a thing. The leader at the top is going to determine much of the culture and everything, and the values and all that trickle down. But you are not held and bound by only that. You can be the person at the bottom of the totem pole, per se, yet not only be influenced by that top leadership. You can still be that standard of excellence, even if it's day one on the job. Like, maybe you're going to have to learn how to do things. So let's say maybe it's month 2 on the job, right? Now you have a general idea of what you're doing. Now you can focus on really being that beacon of excellence, that beacon of leadership. And I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I'm not sure if you are too, but I love Tony Robbins. And he says that your environment is important because proximity is power, but you are not simply a product of your environment. You can help to mold the environment that you're in. So even for those listening who aren't in an organization where they feel listened to by leadership or noticed by leadership, you still have the opportunity to create this environment of excellence around you, to the point of when you are noticed, then you'll rise up to that next position. But even if you never are noticed, then you're making the lives of the people around you that much better. And you're doing, as what you said, building that culture of followers around you who will eventually become leaders who lead at that standard of excellence themselves. Is that true? Do you believe that to be true?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll contend that, if you show up like that, and you maybe don't feel heard, or you don't feel like the leadership of your organization or your whoever it is that you're trying to show that leadership ability in, I guarantee it will breed an opportunity for you where you will be recognized, and you and your talents and your successes will be supported. Because again, you're going to show up and you're going to be above the rest. You're going to be a cut above everyone around you, because you do have that commitment, because you do show that 10% or that one more mentality that we've talked a lot about. That commitment will foster an opportunity for you where your talents will be realized. I fully believe that.
Yeah.
And I think, to kind of go full circle here, one of my first jobs ever was at the Lake George T-shirt Emporium.
Yeah.
And I would run up to the attic and pull down boxes of the right sizes and go searching for knickknacks. And it was it was a job for a 15-year-old, but I still remember very clearly a conversation. I mean, it's vivid in my mind. That boss, his name was Mario. I can't remember his last name for the life of me, but Mario, if you're out there, I remember you. He pulled me aside one summer day and he said, "Listen, kid," and he was very stern, so I thought I was getting in trouble. He said, "I'm giving you a 50-cent raise, and I don't want you to tell a soul, but you're in there working your butt off, and I see you." And I think that moment, along with a few others, really sparked something in me that if I tried harder than the average bear, I would get ahead. It would, more money, more, I'd get a raise, I'd get a promotion, I'd find my way in this working world. And I had that idea at, 15. At a young age, I realized, hey, if I'm just a little bit better than the people around me in terms of my work ethic, I can make more money than them. And at that point, it was as simple as that. That 50 cents is huge. Another quick story around that same sort of mentality. My very first job at, I think, 14 years old was at the Lake George Pancake House. And there was a young couple that came in, and they had a young child, toddler, maybe a year and a half, 2 years old. And as any of you with young children may know, they're not always going to sit down and have a meal with you when you're out and you're on vacation. And I could see this sort of frazzled, sleep deprived look on these two young parents' faces. The baby was having a fuss, and I thought, I'll get a one up here if I can distract this little baby, and these parents can take a couple of bites of their food. So I brought the little child a fruit cup. And the baby was distracted by the fruit cup and really loving it, calmed down, not crying. Mom and dad ate. As they're heading out the door, again, I'm thinking, oh, my boss is going to notice. They're going to say something nice about me. Great. I'll get a little notch in my belt. They hand me a $50 bill. Their breakfast, I think, was $32, So they appreciated so much that effort and that little bit of special attention. And of course, as new parents, they probably enjoyed the peace and quiet for those few bites of their breakfast. But again, another one of those stories where it imprinted on me that if you just go above and beyond that little bit, find your opportunities, take those moments that present themselves and show up in those moments, and you can be successful through that mindset and through that, just being one better, like you said.
Wow. And you were 14. By the way, I love that fruit cup story.
It's a good story.
It's powerful because it's true.
Yeah.
And you were 14 when that happened. You were very young.
Yeah. I don't think I really even at the time realized, what that few minutes of that meal would mean to those parents, really, because I was too young. But now, certainly as a young father, I recognize why the $50 bill really didn't matter as much as those few minutes.
Yes, absolutely. But the $50 is a very nice thing, right?
Hey, at 14, that was huge.
That's like thousands of dollars nowadays.
Yes, exactly. Right, exactly.
So this is really what you just said is about having the faith that even if what you're doing, this one more mentality, isn't getting you the result that you want at first, it's having the faith that it will lead to something in the future. And it's faith, but it's also doing more even when your superior isn't watching, even when your leadership isn't there. It's doing more with the faith that it will lead to something better. When you explained that story about your manager at the Shirt Emporium, Mario, you like unlocked a hidden memory in my mind of something very similar when I was 15, maybe 16. No, I think I was 15 when I worked at the Great Escape for 4 seasons. I worked there. And I think that you and I both started working very young, you 1 year earlier than me. But I think that in itself lends a lot of merit to who you become later in your working career. Not to say that if you start late that you don't have that opportunity, but we had a good 5-year head start on a lot of people. And I think that builds up character in itself. But I remember I didn't get along very well with my direct leaders. They were kids too. We didn't really get along too well. But I remember I always wanted to do my best because that's what my parents taught me. My dad's a hard worker. My mom's a hard worker. I come from a family of hard workers. If you want something, you go out there and get it. That's why I started working in the first place. And I remember I was going above and beyond, but not seeing anything from it until one day I was working at the exit store, which is the store you walk through as soon as you leave the Six Flags park. And our top manager of the park was there. Her name was Terry. And Terry, if you're watching this, I've never told this story before, but Terry made a giant impact on my life because while I wasn't recognized by my leaders right above me, Terry walked over to me that day and we have this reward system called red dots. And for each red dot you can put it under your name tag. When you filled up a name tag, you got this cool flag thing, like this Six Flag thing that you put under. That pretty much shows that you're a top person at Six Flags. You take care of people. You're dedicated to your job. You're dedicated to one more. And she came over and she gave me 3 red dots. And she said, I just want you to know I've been watching you over the past few months. And I'm really impressed by you. And I really hope that you stay for next season. And I wanted to give you these 3 red dots. And those 3 red dots pushed me over that level to get that flag under my name. And let me tell you, I remember this to this day, the pride that gave me, the self-pride and the self-esteem that was built by me doing more when I thought nobody was watching is what has brought me to where I am today, talking to many other people who are quote unquote successful in many different areas, when maybe if she didn't walk over to me in those early days and give me those 3 red dots, I wouldn't be where I was now. So it's that influence of the mentors in your life and the leadership in your life. It's amazing looking back and connecting those dots to see where those influences can actually lead you.
And again, on the flip side of that, I'm 38 years old and I'm telling this story now, now that I've established a career and been in, various organizations. I'm telling this anecdotal story about somebody that I barely know. I knew them many, many years ago in that instance. But frankly, he probably doesn't remember who I am. But I remember him and I remember his impact at that moment. I can vividly see the conversation on the side of the street, outside the shop. It's all still there. So look at the impact that you as an individual can have on the people around you if you take those opportunities. Look for opportunities to recognize the people around you who do contribute to your successes, because not only will they continue to contribute to your successes, but they may take you on a whole new journey or take you to a whole new plateau of quote unquote success, based on your recognition. Creating leaders, again, that sense of what is leadership and what is defined, how do you define it? Creating other leaders is a big component of what leadership is. At Spot, I tried to create an environment where all of my employees feel empowered to make decisions. And I always say, I reserve the right to come back and have a conversation about your decision, but I want you to feel empowered to do so. If you have the resources, if you have the support that you need, then you should be able to make choices and make them reasonably assuredly. And then we can, in the instance that we, make a bad choice or that something doesn't go the way we expected, which is life and which will happen, how do you respond to that? And so I try to create an environment and a culture at Spot where people can make mistakes. We try to be our absolute best for our customers, for our guests, and give them an excellent experience at all turns. But also we are human beings and we do suffer the life, and we all have our own individual experiences brought into our work experience. And so I try to create an environment where people feel supported and comfortable, and that even when they do have a quote unquote failure, that they will be better for it. In the short term, I want them to learn from it immediately and have something positive come from it now. I don't want it to be an epiphany, 10 years down the line. But I think culture and environment gives them that space to do that. And I think because of that, they're leaders in their own right, more so than they would be if I didn't give them that opportunity.
Yeah, you're giving them the power to make their own decisions while also reserving the right, like you said, to have that conversation afterwards of, hey, this is what I've observed about this decision that you've made. This was the positive. This is what I would recommend you change moving forward in your next decision. And from that, yes, you might have some mistakes that are made from people who aren't the greatest at making those decisions themselves yet, but they'll become better and better and better. And you're building up leaders behind you in that way. I want to point out something that I think is very powerful that I've observed firsthand with you. And that is when we met at Spot for the second conversation that we had after buying local. What I didn't expect to see is you've built up restaurants. You are now the operations manager of several Spot locations, Glens Falls and Saratoga. What I didn't expect to see is the person who makes the schedule, the person who handles the payroll, yourself, the person who who is the leader of the locations, yourself, the one who goes to meetings halfway across the state, like the person who does all this was also the person who was in the back cooking, was the person who was calling the names of the people once the food was made, was the person ringing people out. Like you were doing everything that day because you were very busy and the store needed help. But let me tell you something. I don't know if you've seen this in your own journeys, but like I come from jobs where my manager sometimes doesn't even know how to use the cash register,
Right.
where my manager doesn't speak to the customers.
I think that's more common than we might, even know.
Yes, it's more common than not. Like, do you believe that there's a direct correlation between next level excellence standard leadership when it comes to performing all of the duties from the bottom? I hate saying that, but it's the reality, from the bottom and up, right? Like, is there a correlation between those things?
I think there's no doubt about that. And certainly, I mean, you'll find success stories all across the country of people that started out, as the busboy and ended up as the CEO, right? Like those are real stories that happen. And I think it is a testament to those individuals and how they build their success. And certainly having the experience of an entire organization from bottom to top can help you be successful in those roles. For myself, and in this particular instance, I have a commitment to success. I have a commitment to maintaining the standard of not only excellence for our guest experience, but also on the business side of things. I have a commitment to my labor percentages. I have a commitment to my cost of goods sold. To me, fulfilling those commitments is not just a commitment to my employer, right? Who asks me to do these things on the, so that our company can be successful, but also the other managers in the company. If I run a successful cafe, they have a more positive cash flow. We can perform our duties on an executive level more efficiently, and so their lives as managers can be better. Not only that, but maybe it puts us in line to have additional revenue or additional funds for holiday parties, for bonuses, for, the little things that do build up confidence and camaraderie within your teams. So I won't shy away from any part of the business. I take the trash out and I pay the bills. It's everything in between. And so to achieve those specific, we call them KPIs, key performance indicators, maybe on a Wednesday in the middle of December, I'm going to be cooking for 6 or 7 hours. And I like that. I actually enjoy it. There is a challenge aspect to it that I enjoy, and I like to train that way. I say, I can do all this very efficiently. Now I'm going to push myself to say, okay, how much can I put out with the same standard? We're going to get the same quality, but how fast can I make this Saturday go in terms of, the turnaround on the ticket, right? Can I make this a 6-minute ticket, a 7-minute ticket, as opposed to a 12 or 15-minute ticket, which you might see when it's a little busier, might get to 15. In the middle of August, when we have a line out the door all day, you might see an omelet take 20 minutes. But
you create, in a sense, these micro challenges.
Absolutely. And I think you have to do that for yourself and for your staff. If you continuously dangle that proverbial carrot, so to speak, I don't like to move the goalpost. I think that's not a great technique. You want people to have clear goals and clear objectives, and sort of you want them to have the questions that are going to be on the test, so to speak.
Yeah.
But just, pushing them that extra little bit. Don't ever be complacent with your success. We've taken the Glens Falls location, in particular in our company, from, right around 5th, middle of the road, to the top performer in the company. I came in 2021, January 2021, coming out of COVID. The cafe had been, again, that middle of the pack cafe for our company for a long time. And within, it took some time. It wasn't that first year, but into 2022, about halfway into 2022, we started to see the needle flip. And now we became, the top revenue store, fighting for top revenue. So we're a 1-2 punch, us in our Elmwood Village Cafe in downtown Buffalo. And so that was, that's, don't be complacent with your successes. Continue to push the envelope. And that's how we climbed that ladder, so to speak.
How can you do that? How can you continue to push the envelope if you are in that top position? Because I come from a place where I see the top people, because I come from a place of sales where the top people become complacent being at the top because they don't have that competition pushing them. And it sounds like that the Buffalo location is, in a sense, that competition that helps push you. And that's very important, because if there was a giant gap between you and number 2, then that's where complacency is bred, in a sense. So how do you continue to push the envelope, even being in the top spot?
I think it's about being present. I think it's about taking opportunities, observe, communicate. A lot of communication and observation, and I link those two things together very specifically, because I think observation is communication, and how you observe allows you to communicate more effectively.
Wow.
So I observe my employees when I'm giving direction or instruction. I'm often talking, but also really closely listening and watching. I want to see their body language. Are they comprehending what I'm really meaning? Or it's in the eye or the ear of the beholder, right? So the person who's receiving the message is the one who ultimately determines the meaning of that message. So you have to continuously be in touch with these feedback loops with your employees. And so listening to their verbal responses, listening to how they speak in a group setting versus one-on-one, observing their body language. Do they shrink away? Does their shoulders dip? Are their eyes focused on your mouth when you're talking, or are they, distracted and thinking of maybe their response? It's really important to observe. And when you observe well, and when you listen well, you become a better communicator. And that's, I think, how I take opportunities. I see opportunities not only with individuals, but also in situations. I'll give you an example at the cafe level. we have a saying, full and appealing pastry case, right? So we want you to walk through our front doors. We're going to say hello, welcome, make you feel at home. But when you walk through those doors and you approach the counter, we want to have this beautiful pastry case with an assortment of great choices, well written and clear signage, clean glass, all those things that attract people to purchase, frankly.
Yeah.
And so,
and it does look good, by the way.
Thank you. It's a sticking point for me. So, I will observe the pastry case. And although it may be 98% great, I'm going to say, hey, let's fill those cookies.
Yeah. Let's
make sure that spot that's empty now because they ate all of the blueberry muffins, let's fill it. You know what? They ate blueberry. Let's give them some more blueberry. So those are small instances and small examples, but if you take that approach and that mindset to everything, to all aspects of what you're doing, you'll find those successes, and you'll push that envelope. We have our Saratoga location didn't sell, for whatever reason, fruit cups. We have this beautiful fresh fruit cup, that we have honeydew and cantaloupe and pineapple and great grapes, red grapes, a great, awesome little snack or add-on to your lunch. Mm-hmm. They just weren't selling it. I said, you know what? I don't think it's present and full and appealing in your case. I think you need to put more in, because they were reducing, right? Because they weren't selling, they were reducing the number that they were making. And so sometimes they wouldn't have any at all, or they'd have one. And people have this mindset of, how long has that been there? It's the last one. Is that fresh?
True.
So I said, hey, let's make this appealing. And if we have a little waste in the beginning, because it does go bad and it is a perishable good, I'm okay with it. We're gonna experiment with it. We're gonna prepare ourselves for further failure. But I want you to put more, do a little more of it, and see if that builds traction. And sure enough,
wow,
full, appealing, fresh, and it started to move. And the consistency of having it there every day led people to believe that it is fresh, and it's, and so it became more appealing to them as an item. And we started to see traction, and we started to sell that item on a more consistent basis. And now it's a steady revenue stream where we expect it to be.
Well, you decided to look at it instead of from the company viewpoint of, we can't have waste, we must be efficient, this isn't moving product, so let's change it. You decided to instead, which, by the way, that first way of thinking, that's plausible thinking, that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. But you looked at it from the customer standpoint of, ooh, there's only one of those left. How many flies have landed on it? How long has it been there? Obviously, it's not too popular. And you changed the way that you did things based on what the customer was thinking in their mind, not the corporate speak way of thinking that a lot of us operate from. And at the same time, the importance of risk taking, you took a risk by putting more there, and you weren't afraid to make a mistake, knowing that you would change if you didn't see the results that you wanted. I think it's one thing to make a mistake and do it over and over and over. It's another thing to take a calculated risk and make a mistake and then change based on those results.
Yeah. Again, observation, right? Take the time to observe your results. A lot of times people put things into motion and then they don't do the very important work of analyzing the results properly. And you do have to pay attention, and you do have to, I did a study when I was doing my master's work. I did a study on entrepreneurship and personality trait, which was really kind of interesting. And it's something that is now coming back into vogue a little bit here on the corporate world in terms of personality assessments and how those play into corporate hiring and whatnot. But one of the major foundations of entrepreneurship, which is what I studied, is risk aversion. If you are overly risk averse, you may not be the best entrepreneur. Not to say you won't be successful, but that you may find yourself in a more of a dilemma personally if you do fear those risks, yet you're taking that entrepreneurial route. But you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to take calculated risk and fail and observe that failure and respond, to that failure with another plan, with a new approach. And I think, again, that kind of goes back to a little bit of what I do with all of my employees is I teach them to observe. I teach them to be present, and I teach them to be proactive and not reactive. And I think that helps me. In many instances, it takes the load of trying to be the jack of all trades that I am. It takes a little bit of that weight off, because I can rely on the people around me to do a really great job.
Yes. Can I ask you a personal question?
Of course.
Okay. You have a very full life doing what you do with Spot. You are a married man.
I am.
You are involved in your community, involved with networking, building new relationships. You have a new son, right?
I do. I have a 2-year-old, Theodore. Yep.
Awesome.
And one on the way.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, we just found out. So yeah, we've got another boy.
Yes. So cool. I got a boy on the way also.
Oh, congratulations. That's
Thank
great.
you. That's
awesome.
Really cool. I love that. Yeah. So your life is very, very full, and it's going to become fuller. Okay. Yes. So how do you prioritize your life and still get so much done in a professional sense, even though you've got a small family that is growing even more, even though it's important to you to stay a part of the community? Like, how we've all got the same 16 hours that we're awake, maybe even less, right? Like, how do you prioritize your life and fit so much in the capacity that you do?
I think that's a challenge for everybody that does go out there and put themselves in positions like I have. I've always, like you said, I've been a hard worker my whole life. From the age of 14, my parents instilled in me that if you wanted something, you're going to have to go get it, because we're not going to hand it to you. So, that mentality was instilled in me very young. I think that you have to make choices, and those choices sometimes can be difficult and painful at times. But it truly is about, I was reading some of the materials actually that you had given me, and that idea of one more phone call, one more email, I think you just have to pick your battles, right? Mm-hmm. Take the opportunities when they arise. That one email or that one phone call might actually in the long run net you some time, right? So if you're there and you see an opportunity where, hey, if I just answer this email right now, maybe I have an opportunity to free myself up on something later on, and I'm going to be able to give that time back to my family. Yeah. But I think it is a struggle, and I think it is something that I personally always kind of battle with, and I know my wife battles with. But if you're present in your family life, right, and you're taking that time, we have a little bit of a rule. When I get home from work, I try to put my phone, my laptop, my briefcase away for a good 45 minutes at least, because I am often drawn, back to work. So we have a little, a cutout that says, hey, let's give each other this time at the very least when you walk through the door. And then if you need to follow up with an email or a phone call, great. And then you can come back and we can make dinner and so on and so forth. But be present when you are in different scenarios, right? In your work scenario, be present, be there. Don't be responding to, text messages and calls from home. When you're with home, be with home. Yeah. When you're with your friends, commit to your friends. Those relationships are important as well. And I think being well-rounded and having friends and family and work and all of that, which some of us really need to be the best versions of ourselves. And I'm one of those people. I need all of those relationships to be the best that I can be. Mm-hmm. The fullest version of myself. And I value those things. So you have to value them first and foremost. You have to value those relationships, and then you have to be present when you're in those instances. Yeah. But that's not always easy. It's a challenge that I think we all face on a regular basis. And there is a little bit of, trading off sometimes. But again, if you take that phone call now, if you respond to that email now, maybe that's going to put some money in the bank, so to speak, or you'll be, playing with house time at that point, because it's going to create an opportunity or a revenue stream, or, or a relationship, or, something down the line that will put, some time back in the piggy bank, or some money in the piggy bank, or whatever it is that opportunity presented itself for you. Just don't be present, and don't turn down opportunities as they arise.
There's no overstating how brilliant that last 3 minutes that you just explained is, because that is the difference between being overloaded, being totally stressed out, having too much of a full plate, and being someone who instead is, yes, they have a full plate, but I would much rather have that full plate and choose what I want to do, choose what's most important, than not be challenged and not have a challenge on my plate. The happiest people that I meet in this world are not the people who don't have anything going on. They're relaxing. They're always vacationing. It's the people like yourself who are constantly challenged, who are juggling all these different things, because I believe that happiness is the progress you make when you are progressing through this journey and making those difficult choices, and sometimes prioritizing work over family, and sometimes prioritizing family over work. Like when your second boy comes into the world, I'm sure that you're going to be prioritizing him, and that it'll be 80% family, 20% work, and that will slowly go back. But life is like the seasons. Some seasons you're more here, some seasons you're more here, right? Like my wife has a difficult job too, where she works at High Peaks Hospice in Glens Falls, and she's a social worker for the hospice team. And a lot of people hear that and they're like, "Oh man, like how do you do that? I could never do that." And they say that, and it's like, well, she says, "I'm the same as you. Like it's not the easiest job, but one, I like helping people, and two, like what you said, Bill, she gives herself only 2 times she can look at her work iPad after she gets home. She allows herself 2 times. She gets to choose what those times are, and she only gives herself about 5 minutes for each of those times." And she said that after she created that hard stop, her quality of life improved vastly, because then she was able to be present with family when she was home. And then when she's at work, when I'm at work, when she's at work, we're not texting each other back and forth. Like we might send on "I love you" and "how's your day" every now and then, but she's present there, and I respect that. And I'm present here, and she respects that. So that when we are together, we're able to be present with each other and truly be able to give each other our time and our attention in that moment. So thank you for that. Because I think that if people just listen to that over and over and over, like that is one of many nuggets that we've discussed that people can apply immediately, because it's so true.
And also with that, don't be too hard on yourself, because you know what? We're not perfect, and we are going to make mistakes, and we are going to, jeopardize one thing in the wrong moment, and we're going to have, work or family, maybe not take that the best. Be prepared for that. But I'll say this: when you do put in that commitment on the front side of things, often, whether it be the people in your personal life or your work, they will now, because you've given them that commitment in the past, they're now much more, they can handle that your attention may focus somewhere else for a moment, because you have displayed that commitment to them in the past, and they know you're coming back. So be gracious with yourself, be gracious with the people in your life, because we will make mistakes, and we will make the wrong choice in an instance, sometimes, but continue to show that commitment, continue to show that you are present. And I think that those instances are easily overcome, or easily, solved, so to speak, because you have shown leadership, because you have been a good partner, because you have been a good employee, and shown your commitment in the past. So if you've laid that foundation, the inevitable challenges, the inevitable wrong steps will be less impactful, because you have laid such a great foundation in your life.
Yes. Wise words. So what does the future in 2023 look like for Bill and for Spot Coffee? What's new and exciting coming up here?
Yeah, well, I am very much interested in growing the company. We are based in Buffalo, New York. We have 10 corporately run cafes, another 17 franchise cafes. So my personal goal is I would love to see this region build out its Spot Coffee presence. We do have franchising opportunities. And I think that if there are any investors out there that are interested in a well-run and profitable business model, the Glens Falls Cafe is a great test model for what's possible in Spot Coffee. So that's one of my personal goals. I'd like to see that our company grown out a little bit in this region. Again, I'm going to have a baby come July of 2023. So I've got a little while still to get there, but that's a big personal achievement for myself. But Spot's going to continue to grow, continue to roll out new products, new menu items. We're going to continue to foster some relationships with local bakeries so that we can supplement some of our own offerings with local purveyors as well. So I think that's a really cool aspect of what we do. Next month, we're going to have the French toast latte, which is a big crowd pleaser for our shops. Everyone is a big fan of this new, well, I should say repeat, because it is a staple for us now. So people are excited for that January special. But yeah, we're going to continue to do our loyalty program bumps every so often. You'll get a double points run, a week or 10 days worth of double points. So stay tuned to our social media and our website. If you go to spotcoffee.com/deals, it describes all of the various offers that we have. And now through the end of the year, there are 50% off select merchandise on our website, and we also continue to run our gift card deal through the end of the year. So a couple more days here, 15% off, and if you get to $100, it's 20% off. So it's a great discount, frankly. But yeah, so we'd love to see Spot Coffee continue to grow. I want to hold on very securely to my number one spot in the cafe revenue standings. So that's going to be a goal for our cafe. And we're going to continue to outreach catering into our region because we now have the capacity I have a kitchen manager and an assistant kitchen manager. So we'll be able to provide really high level quality catering to the downtown Glens Falls area as well. And I want to continue to build that out. And the Saratoga Cafe also has a great opportunity there to cater. So if you're a downtown business in either Saratoga or Glens Falls, please reach out to us. Our catering menu is online on our spotcoffee.com. But there's some great opportunities, very affordable, and a great array of options in our catering packages. So by all means, if you're interested, please reach out.
Amazing. This has been one hell of a conversation, Bill. For those listening, let me say, for those listening, if you are an investor who wants to take a look at what this business model can look like and what it can do, and this makes sense for you, I will include Bill's Facebook profile so that you can connect with him below, as well as the Spot Coffee website for the local offices here in Glens Falls and Saratoga. And I know that you'll maintain that number one spot, brother. And even if it slips for a minute, I know you'll get back there, and I know that competition will continue to drive you.
That's right.
Thank you, Bill. It was a pleasure speaking with you today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Brandon. It was great. And to everybody listening, Brandon has some great material, and he's inspiring a lot of people. So happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Guys, whether you are working for a business, an organization, you're looking to move up into leadership, you're looking to start your own business and wondering how to go about it and what standard to operate from, this is the conversation for you. I hope you took some nuggets away from Bill's own story, from his own journey. He's a man who practices what he preaches. He's in the quote unquote trenches every single day. And the trenches are a great place to be because it keeps you humble. It keeps you understanding the business, and it keeps you building the relationship with the people around you so that they can see, hey, my leader is actually doing what I'm doing. He knows how to operate the cash register. He knows how this business works, and he can help me grow. Bill is an excellent example of leadership. an excellent example of the standard of excellence that we talked about. And I hope that you connect with him below if you enjoyed this conversation. And if you're interested in franchising a Spot Coffee for yourself, or if you just want to check out a Spot Coffee near you, links are in the description. Hope you loved this conversation. If you did, all that we ask is that you share this show with just one other person. We don't have ads. We don't have sponsors, because you're the greatest part of the team. And we grow because you share the show. And that rhymed, which is really cool. But thank you so much for watching. Share the show. And until next time, continue to be better.